Today we're going to be going through pointers and what are pointers, how to use them in exercises, and we're going to go through some examples. To begin with, a pointer is a variable that stores the value of the memory address of another variable as its own value. A pointer variable also points to any data type such as int, char, string, or anything of that kind. The way you can use a pointer is by using the asterisk sign and then the name of the operator. Okay, so as a first exercise, I thought we're gonna go pretty simple and try to print out a memory address of a given variable. So if we try int x as a variable, then if we wanted to print out the pointer of that variable, we would have to do %p and then and symbol x. So what this says is there is a variable named x. We're printing out the pointer of the memory address of x. So as you see, the and symbol defines the memory address. P defines pointer and the variable is x. If we try to print this out, it's just going to give us a bunch of random numbers, and these numbers is where this variable is located. Okay, as a second exercise, we're going to be making a program that resets the value of an integer to 0 using pointers. Now, before making this program, we want to have a function that returns nothing, and the only type of functions that return nothing is the void functions. So let's call it void 0 pointer. Void 0 pointer is a function made out of a pointer of n. Now this means in here we're going to have to implement a variable n. After doing that, we also have to make a pointer, let's call it ptr, which directs to the memory address of n, and then we're going to scan the variable n with %d store the value of n, and then we're making the equals to 1, so we have an EOF in the program. Now let's do it like this. We're gonna first print out the value before the function and then after the function. So before the pointer function, %d \n for a new row and then n, and then printf after the pointer. All right, now we have to define and make the program only use the function on the second row, and that means we would have to put the function in here. And what this says, because C reads a program from the top to the bottom, we know that the first line will not be included because the function is below the first line. So that means the function will only include everything below that line itself, which is only the after the function part. And now we have to define the function and what it does. And the function is 0 pointer. Let's call it again. And curly braces, and then because this function doesn't, you can't use return since we're using void. Maybe it will work, but that's not the correct way to do it. We want to do something without using return, and we want to make the value to 0. And the easiest way to doing that is just setting n equals to 0. And now if we run this program, it's gonna, and type in any integer, it's gonna give us the integer before and after using the function 0 pointer. So it should be, if we put 3, it should give us 3, and then after the function. Alright, in the third exercise, we're going to be going through a program that multiplies integers by 3 using pointers. And again, we're going to be having a function that doesn't return anything, certainly, but only does something, multiplying by 3. So for that, we can still use void. You can call the function triple pointer, and the variable, let's just call it ptr again. In the int main, we're going to be defining two variables. We're going to be defining x, and we're going to be defining ptr, which directs to the memory address of x. Then we're going to make a while, and in the while we're going to scan our x. Store the value equals to 1. Alright, now as we said before, the function has to be written above for it to go from the program from up to down. So that's why we're gonna have to do triple pointer above the print function. And here we're gonna be printing out %dn of x. Now this function is almost just as simple as the previous one. Let me just write it out. So we just have to multiply it by 3, and we could do this in two different ways. Either we do ptr times equals to ptr, or just 3 over here, or we could do it the way I prefer, which is like this: ptr equals to ptr times 3. And the reason I prefer this more is because this displays more what's happening. Forgot the terms. You can, in my opinion, you can see this a little bit easier what's going on compared to the previous one, and that's why I prefer this method. And then you see it's returning the integer multiplied by 3 using pointers by identifying the memory address. Okay, the fourth and last exercise, we're going to be making a program that swaps the places of two integers with each other. So say we're given 5 and 6, it's going to return 6 and 5. And first of all, we're going to be implementing a function, and the function, once again, doesn't have to return anything. It can actually only be void. We can call the function swap, but this function has to consist of two different variables, and these two different variables has to be pointers. So we can call this px, and then we can call this int py. Now, because we did that, now we have to implement 4 different things here. We have to do an int, and the int has to be x and y, and for each x and y, they have to have their own pointers. So px directs to the memory address of x, and py directs to the memory address of y. Now, in the while scanf, since we put 2 different variables, x and y, we're going to be scanning 2 different variables. Means we have to do equals to 2 here. Now we're going to call the function, as we always do, before we print it out. So here it's going to be swap, and it's not 1 variable, it's 2. So this would be px, comma, py, and then printf %d. We're going to be printing out 2 different variables, just their places swapped. But here we can just name them x and y, while the function over here will do the swapping part. So now we're done with this. Now we have to do is define the function. So void swap px. Okay, so if you would do px equals py right away, and then do py equals px, this wouldn't work because C would forget what px actually was. So that's why we have to declare a little function that keeps the value temporarily until you can swap the places between px and py. Because you can't just do px equals py and then keep moving forward py equals px, because C would forget the value of x as you put it first. So we have to declare a little function here that, or not a function, a variable that remembers the value as we go on. So we can call that the buffer, and then you would do buffer equals to px. So say we would have 3, 4, then now buffer is 3. Okay, and then now here we would do px equals py. And here we can say that because the 3 went down here, then we can do the old 3 equals to 4. So now what we have is 4, 4, and then buffer 3. And now we would do py equals to buffer. And now we have 4, 3. So what we do is first we do 3, first it's 3, 4. We place one of the values in the buffer. So then now we have, and then we equals that value to the one that we want to swap it with. So then we have the same value at the top, but we have a buffer that stored one of the values, let's say x. And in the end, we use that value to swap it with the value, the second value that we want to swap it with. I hope this made sense. You can write in the comments if you want a further explanation. And this should take in 1, 2 and return 2, 1. I guess not. What did we miss out? Oh yeah, we forgot to scan them over here. There we go. And then 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on.